For me, I think the books are still underrating what his role was in the offense last year to close the season. I think he's going to be in the MVP conversation. I think they're a legitimate Super Bowl contender here.
Let's talk Ricky. You like Ricky over 850.5. I like Ricky. I love Ricky like a son, minus 114. What do you have on Ricky?
For me, I think the books are still underrating what his role was in the offense last year to close the season. If you took that season and broke it into two, basically, divided his routes run in half and looked at two separate seasons of Ricky Pearsall, what you see is the environment in the role that he grew into was like, it was ridiculous. I mean, his first read share went up 10%. The design target rate went up 10%. His win rate versus man coverage all the way up to 30%. Zone win rate went up. Route distribution evened out. So he's running like 40% short routes, 40% intermediate, 15% deep, and the rest is screens and design stuff. And what really that shows you is that he was the alpha down the stretch last year. And I think that's going to be the role in the offense with Brandon Ayuk on the shelf till God knows when, Juwan Jennings in a calf injury / contract battle. Obviously Kittle's always going to be Kittle, but I think Ricky has the opportunity to be, the man. And we haven't seen a San Francisco 49ers offense not produce a really good receiver in the last, 5-6 years. So I'm pretty, looking forward. I think 850 is low. I don't think the books are even close to where his role is going to be right now. And so I'm all in on Ricky P. I think he's going to make me look like a smart man.
Jameson Williams, a little polarizing still. 900.5 yards, minus 114. I'm in on the over, despite the loss of Ben Johnson. I think that's kind of the crux of the matter. People are a little skeptical, but I do think that Jameson, I'm a little worried about no Ben Johnson, but I'm not worried about the fact or my opinion that Jameson Williams is still ascending. But what do you see on JMO?
Yeah, the main thing for me is I think people are overstating the no Ben Johnson thing a little bit. I'm not going to say it's not a little concerning, but man, this is Dan Campbell's offense. He designed the offense. Right. Ben Johnson was, someone he put in charge there to run the offense, but Dan was equally part of that process, those play calling duties. So I think people are overstating that a little bit. They also brought in John Morton, who's a well-respected guy in the NFL. He had 4 offensive coordinator offers this offseason. He chose the Lions because of his relationship with Dan Campbell, and he was previously with the Lions. So I like the continuity aspect there. I don't think really anything changes from a philosophical standpoint. Then they brought in new blood, David Shaw, Bruce Gradkowski, Tashard Choice. These are all well-respected dudes in the space. So I think, if anything, I think there's a chance this Lions offense could get even better, just because the talent keeps growing, and they just keep bringing in more and more minds for that collaborative effort. But also Jameson Williams, I mean, he missed 3 games last season with a suspension, and he still broke the 900 receiving yard prop that's out there. Yeah. And then you look at the role that he got down the stretch. We saw Amon-Ra's role take kind of a dip when you look at first read rate, target share, things of that nature. And Jameson's go up and up and up throughout the season. And then I have to throw out what I saw in camp. I know you're a big vibe guy, John, right? I went down in camp. I watched, 6 or 7 practices, and most notably against the Miami Dolphins. And the way they're using JMO is a little different this year, a little bit more first read heavy in the offense, a lot of slot usage. It's not only deep stuff. It's, hey, we're going to get him touches in the short part of the field and let him go to town with yak, stuff like that. So I think his target share goes way up this year. I think 900 yards is super safe. Like, I think John, this is a hot take. I think he could have more yards than Amon-Ra St. Brown. I think St. Brown still leads the way in terms of targets, but JMO is so efficient with the ball in his hands. I do think he could actually surpass St. Brown in the yardage department.
Baker Mayfield, next on your list, over 38.5. I mean, look, I've always been a Baker person. Didn't rank him high enough last year. Got to say, though, I am a little worried about no Liam Cohen. I know it's a similar offense. All the injuries, Tristan Wirfs, but yet this is a pretty easy number, right? 3,800.5. What do you got on Baker?
You kind of nailed it. I mean, I think people are panicking because no Liam Cohen, right? But Baker's now done this 2 years in a row, one with Cohen, one with Dave Canales. Josh Grizzard was in the room with Liam Cohen last year. I mean, this is again, similar to the line situation, we're getting some continuity here because Grizzard is familiar with how the offense was run last year. I think you're going to see a lot of those elements remain. And then I think something that's kind of cool is before Grizzard was with Cohen in Tampa, he was with Mike McDaniel over in Miami. And in that 2022, 2023 season where that Miami offense was insanely explosive, So I think you might get some even more explosive, concepts and looks there that really kind of just it raises the floor for Baker even higher. I think 3,800 is like easy. Not to mention the fact that I think Tampa Bay is a legitimate Super Bowl contender. They added another receiver in the first round. I think, with guys like Baker Mayfield and Jared Goff, and I think what teams have realized is like as long as we keep the cupboard full of talent, these guys can perform at a really, really high level. Baker's one of those guys, and adding Emeka Egbuka, you already have Mike Evans. Chris Godwin will be back. The offensive line is awesome. The run game's good. Everything's lining up for Baker to have an awesome season again. I think he's going to be in the MVP conversation. I think they're a legitimate Super Bowl contender here.
And C.J. Stroud also over 3,800.5. I'm not in on Stroud, but I love Nico. And I kind of like Christian Kirk as a sneaky pick. And very late, everyone's forgotten Dalton Schultz exists. But what do you have on C.J. Stroud?
Yeah, to me, this was another really safe number with I think the same number is Baker Mayfield, right? So, Stroud smashed this his rookie year. He kind of fell off a little bit last year, but you're bringing in new blood as an offensive coordinator, Nick Caley, who is, partially from that Rams system, but he also brings the elements of the Erhard-Perkins system from the Josh McDaniels days in New England. I really like this blend with C.J. Stroud. I think the one deficiency in Stroud's game that I continually rag on is the way he feels pressure in the pocket and, extending plays too long. Well, I feel like Nick Caley, like his specialty is fixing that. He's going to force C.J. Stroud to get into those checkdowns and just live to see another down. All of that stuff should make Stroud and that offense way more efficient. Not to mention the fact we have, you mentioned Christian Kirk. That's a huge upgrade as a reliable slot guy. Nico is, I think, a top 5 wide receiver in the NFL. And then you add Jaden Higgins to the mix, who is another baller. He can play the X. He can play, the flanker. He can be a big slot weapon as well. I think all things included, I think, the sky is really the limit for C.J. Stroud. He's another one where I think he's a dark horse MVP candidate this year. I think Houston's, they're ready to rock. The defense is awesome. The big wild card that I think people will point to is the offensive line, right? They completely shuffled it.
Yep.
We got to see how that shakes out, but I really liked Ariante Ursary coming out, the left tackle they have there now. I think he elevates the floor of the room, and I think, as long as they can just be average, I think Stroud should shatter this number.
You also like James Conner this week over 65.5 over at Fanatics, and Brian Thomas Jr. over 73.5. I know you're in on BTJ. Babies being born this month are in on BTJ, Brett, because he's really good and everyone knows it.
Thanks for watching, but don't let the betting insights end here. If you want an extra edge this football season, you can get a month of VSiN Pro right now absolutely free. That means access to our betting insights, analysis, and tools like our betting splits at zero cost to you. Click the link in the description to sign up.